So what do you think, Bob? I'm always going on with my wee bits of history about 300-year-old history. Let's say we tell a little history about our own hunting.
Yes, try not to embarrass each other too much.
Okay. I'm 72, so I've had 56 years of legal hunting.
Yes.
You grew up in the country, so
Yes.
we started a little earlier than maybe was legally allowed. I'm sure you did.
After school,
Right?
almost every day.
Right. So let's see, 56 is 112 years of history.
Not bad.
We should be able to come up with a couple of tales, do you think?
I have at least a couple, yeah.
Okay. Maybe you should kick it off.
One that it haunts me, it comes up in my memory all too often to this day, but it was the biggest buck that I didn't get.
Oh, I got a similar story, sir. But please, carry on.
The biggest one. Last couple of days in November, and it was cold. Snow on the ground, perfect. I see the buck, he's coming, I'm ready. I'm on half cock. I bring to full cock, and the mainstream broke.
No.
All I heard was snap, and he looked up.
Busted. Oh.
Well, that was it.
Wow. So my biggest buck that I never got. They say that everyone has the opportunity to get the buck of a lifetime. I've heard people talk.
You know, I was so obsessive about it that I don't know it was a cold. I had fired that thing literally over 1,000 times. And so now I carry a mainspring
With you.
in my bag.
I don't think the deer's going to wait around while you change it.
Yeah, but if I'm off, like we would go to Manitoulin, we would go different places, and I just could see myself sitting there with a useless club for a week.
Yeah, yeah. No, it does. You need to carry in that kit enough to repair and feed the thing.
Exactly.
That's the way I look at it.
Which our ancestors would have done. You know, if you went off, you had to be able to care and maintain it and whatever you needed.
So my biggest buck that I never got was the last day of the muzzleloader season, so December. And again, it was a cold day, but it was a wet snow coming down. Not cold ambiently so much as just shivering cold from the humidity. Wet snow's coming down. And I'm hunting with a buddy, and I drop him off at his watch, and I make my way to mine. And I was just freezing cold. And typically on a humid day, I always dump the pan every 15 minutes. I got a little linen rag on my shooting bag, wipe it out, reprime, close it. Do that every 15 minutes. Well, for some reason that day, I didn't. And near the time to quit, I get up from my watch, and I thought I'd walk through this cedar swamp and come out. And because it's the last day of the hunt, I thought, well, I might as well shoot this off. So en route in, I saw this old can that some farmer had left in their garbage pile. It was off the trail about 70 yards or so, and I thought, well, I'll just take a shot at that offhand and see how that works. And as I'm going towards it, there was this real steep knoll. And as I'm going up the knoll, I could hear something coming the other side. So I put the gun up, went to full cock, and the first thing I saw was antlers. And I'll show you a pair in the cabin that are rather large. Well, this was like those antlers on steroids. And this deer comes over the ridge, and he stops, and he's about 4 yards from me. And I could see his eyes go wide, and he actually stopped momentarily broadside. Gun was already at my shoulders, the perfect shot. And it goes, I had the flash in the pan, the click. And my buddy who was behind me was going, shoot, Pete, shoot. And I go, I did. I did. What I like about that story is, first of all, it gave me a good story. And because it was the last day of the season, it ensured that there was some really good breeding stock for the next year, because he was a big deer. That's my story. You know, but part of this is I got to throw in a wee bit of history, but I love folklore. And there's one story of Daniel Boone, apparently, and it is folklore, whether it's true or not. I like to believe it is, but he's hunting, and he's been tracing this bear all day, tracking it. Finally gets an opportunity to take a shot, gets his gun to his shoulder, and he sneezes just as he squeezes it off. The gun goes high, misses the bear. Of according to the fable, folklore, it hits a limb comes down and cuffs the bear, and he's able to reload and he gets the bear in the end. So.
Well, the second largest deer that I didn't get was out behind my house, and same as you, I saw it, it was coming, and it was perfect. And just as he like literally 10 yards away, but as he came, he stopped, and there was just a screen of ferns. And I thought, well, I'm shooting like 62, it's not a problem. So I took careful aim, fired. He's still standing there. I thought, like, how can I miss? He was still standing there, and so I was able to reload and shoot again. And I missed him again. And then, as it turned out, and this is like, the whole thought process just doesn't work when I'm
Frazzled.
where he is. So he had come like this, and here was his front. I could see like one front leg, his head here, obviously, and his body here. But the rascal didn't stay like that. So I'm aiming here. What he had actually done is turn completely around to look at me.
And you didn't know he'd moved.
And so he was in line with me rather than horizontal. And I was shooting where he wasn't.
Perfect. Hey, I've got coffee on in our walk in. Should have taken enough time for it to be done.
Awesome.
Cup of coffee. You've never turned down my coffee yet.
No.
You're one of the rare ones.
No.
Shall we get a cup?
That would be great.
Welcome, sir.
All right.
So recently, I don't know if you knew, I was down at Martin Station and I interviewed Steve Jinglebach and Mike Miller, and they were relating a couple of hunting stories from the Kentucky outback to hinterland. And I think it was Steve said something to the effect that he said often stories get embellished and people go, and he says, I guarantee 100%, he said, that 10% of my stories are true. So but we don't embellish. These are all true stories.
Oh, 100%.
And you've got one about a bear that you got to relate.
I have a couple about bears, but because I've hunted bears a long time.
All with Flintlock.
And they're both, I really respect bears. They're scary and funny at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some really close encounters with them.
The one where you're sitting on the rock, that's the one I would like you to retell.
Well, I was sitting on a rather large rock. The bear had been, you could see it had been traveling through, and my friend was down the trail away. And I had my 10-bore fowler.
You don't mess around?
No, with bears. It's like go big or go home. So, although I have taken one with a 54. But anyway, this bear, I'm there, and I see from the corner of my eye this bear come just sauntering through. Didn't have a clue I was there. And it's literally, if I had a longer 46-inch barrel, if I had a little bit longer barrel, I probably could have touched it.
That's close.
And I'm thinking,
Big bear?
oh, it was a very large bear. And I was thinking to myself, you know, there's the excitement and the apprehension as well.
Is it going to go off?
Well, just everything flashes through your mind.
You don't have long to think
And I'm
about
bringing it to half, or bringing it to full, depressing the trigger as I do it.
So there's no click.
So there's no click, because I'm like, he's right there. And then the thought enters like, do you really want to do this?
And
then, you know, I said, no, that's why I'm here. So literally, bang.
did you put the stock to your shoulder, or did you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you see,
Oh,
you
yeah.
do a John Wayne on
Oh, no. I needed to make, so
deadly sure.
deadly sure. And I was really lucky in that I was that close, but that ball went through the top of the lungs and took out the top of the heart because it came down on an angle. And the bear took off. But to show you the tenet, first of all I saw was the bear running, which I'm glad it didn't come my way. It kept going. And then all I saw was the smoking residue from my shot in the ground.
Like the patch?
It was a cartridge.
Oh, it was a cartridge?
So you just see the smoldering
paper cartridge.
Cartridge, yeah, like just the smolder and the smoke, you know, coming up. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, I should reload.
Right, you always do.
Like all these things come to your mind. So I waited and I reloaded and I waited and waited. My friend came, and to show you just how tenacious these things are, that thing had gone probably at least 35 yards, maybe 40 yards.
The top of the heart gone.
And when we did follow up, it had turned around and was waiting.
Yeah, that's tenacity.
So, you know, I have the deepest respect for these things.
So kudos to you for getting the bear, but not much of a shot, really.
No, marksmanship was not really a part of it. But, you know, I love bears. It's just too bad they're so tasty.
Yeah, you've given us a couple of hands. I do not bear hunt. We're pretty preoccupied with the deer and moose, but it's fine eating, that's for sure. Speaking of marksmanship, another wee tale or folklore. This one involves Davy Crockett. And back in the day, they would have marksman shooting competitions. And apparently they nailed a half penny to a tree at about 30 paces. And so Daniel Boone's turn, nobody had hit it. Dozens had taken a shot at it. So Davy Crockett steps up and takes aim on this thing and goes, gets a flash in the pan. Unfrazzled, he reloads, or dumps the pan, wipes it, reprimes I should say, brings it up again, boom, hits the thing dead center, right in the nail. And he said the first shot was a warning shot. I like that one. That's marksmanship. I'm lucky if I could hit that can I was going to shoot at on the deer I was talking about before.
Wow.
It's interesting that a lot of hunters are reluctant to sort of do away with the modern and take up the flintlock as their go-to tool for the hunting process. But with enough experience, we discussed earlier that 300 years ago, 250 years ago, 150 years ago, that's all they had, and they fed themselves with it. And maybe you could elaborate a bit on that, Bob. Like I know you've divested yourself of most of your modern guns.
It was a matter of commitment. If I'm gonna hunt with these, then I have to become proficient with it. And that means being familiar with all the intricacies and the little foibles that go along with it. Reading some of the accounts by settlers and some of the long hunters, etc. I remember there were a number of instances where you'd hear of so-called well-known names who would have a clatch, or the flint would turn in the because it wasn't. And I'm thinking, well, these are people whose lives depended on these things, and these things still happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a reminder to me to be fastidious. You know, one of the nice things is, if you're going hunting, you're leaving to go, you're leaving for the day, and had a mental checklist. Is the flint sharp? Is this like everything? Is your vent open? And what I found is, with that kind of commitment, these things are just as reliable as anything.
With the exception of that one I had with the deer I didn't get, you know, I've had really good luck with them as well. It's like you say, familiarity. If one has the ability to fine tune a lock, to get that extra little bit of speed, get rid of any friction undesirable friction inside the lock. It's not just the external part. So if a little bit of experimentation, trial and error, one can get them pretty darn reliable.
And you have to use it.
You have to be familiar with it.
It's second nature.
So, you know, that's something I never have. Some people say, how do you do that? You sit there for, you know, from before sunup and you come back in after sundown. How do you sit there all day or still hunt, like moving slowly through the forest? How do you do it? Don't you get bored? And I'm going, no, because the next second the whole thing can change.
And there are things going on.
There's other things going on. Speaking of guns, you're going to help me do a little layout for a wee bit of carving on Ryan's gun. So essentially, Ryan's gun is in the white now. We could probably take it out, and if we put it all together, we could take it out and shoot it. But now it's the time to add my signature to it with a bit of counsel from you. But we know that this particular piece of wood was really chippy, and so I've got some concerns. I wanted to do a bit of a carving in this area. Molding shouldn't be an issue, but the raised carving, what do you think?
I would turn your attention here. What if you get that? You see, the wood is not, it's very difficult to get a crisp edge.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of the quality of the wood.
Yeah.
And I don't know how well it's going to hold it.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do that. I want to do at least the beaver tail off the back of the tang.
Yeah, you can do that.
It'll be, I'm going to keep it pretty shallow. But again, back to originals. They for the most part, were not very high in terms of
no
raised carvings on the guns. So.
No, and I've got photographs of a number of them that had nothing, no carving.
Yeah.
You know, there might be a little embellishment here, a molding, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how the molding goes, and maybe that's as far as I'm going to go with it. We might get you to help me scale out a proper carving here. And
yeah, something simple.
I'll decide after we get the molding finished whether or not... Anyway, let's start with the molding, and we'll see where we go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay. So I was going to do raised carving on this gun, but I realized, having experienced it being the chippiest piece of wood I've worked with, and I can't get clean edges, I was afraid even if I did shallow raised carving that over time with some bumps and what have you, they'd chip off. So anyway, Bob's long since left for home, but it got me thinking of another Flintlock story I forgot to tell. So in Canada, we have this apprenticeship program where if you're not 16 and want to hunt, you can hunt with an adult who's a legal hunter. So father and son, good friends, they're on their very first hunt. I think he was 15, and they're sitting, he's leaning against a big old willow tree, and they can only have one firearm. So he's got the flintlock, and they're sitting there, and the primary shooting area was out in front of them where they anticipated the deer. And then they're sitting there for a while, and his dad says to him, "There's a deer behind you." And Ryan just immediately up and swings around this tree and shoots. He's just shooting at his shadow because that deer was gone. It was like really close, 25, 30 yards. Anyway, his dad goes, patient fellow, he goes to reload. So he reloads, he sits back down. He no sooner gets his butt back down in the log, he's leaning against the tree, and his dad goes, "He's back." And this time Ryan slowly moves around this big old willow tree and leans the gun out and touches it off, and he shoots his very first deer on his very first morning of a deer hunt. And it was one fine 10-point buck at about 25 yards. And I think what people will ask, well, why did the darn fool deer come back? But I think when a shot is that close to an animal, they're a flight animal, so they're going to run. But if they don't know where the sound came from, and they can't decide which way to run, often they'll do a circle trying to find where that danger is. And I think that deer just did a tiny 30 or 40 yard circle, came right back, stood in the same spot. And I think what was born that day was a hunter for life. I'm pretty sure of it.